It's an awesome airplane. Let's go flying. Man, where am I? Okay, I know I'm in Carlsbad, California. I'm out on the West Coast. That's a long way from home for a Georgia boy like myself. And yes, this is my real accent, folks. It's not made up, but it's just the way we talk in Georgia. One thing about us in Georgia, we love to fly airplanes too. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna fly, and we're gonna talk about the pressurized 210, Cessna pressurized 210, more specifically the R model. The R model sitting right behind me is November 23 Kilo Bravo. We're going to point out some good things about these aircraft, why they're so beloved by Cessna owners, what they're really good at, maybe some things they're bad at too. We're going to take it in the air. We're going to do a little flight test on it. This aircraft just came out of a very, very extensive annual inspection. Wait till you get a load of these logbooks. It's crazy. So we're going to go over the aircraft. We're going to talk about, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's go a little deeper. Like I was saying earlier, you have to excuse the hangar that I'm in. I think they got me in a storage hangar right now. I've been waiting to get out here to California for about a week to get this thing. But anyway, we're kind of parked back here in a storage hangar, and this aircraft underwent a 3-month-long, maybe even 4-month-long annual inspection, and I think they touched everything. If they didn't rebuild the airplane, I'd be really surprised. But they touched everything, and I don't think the owner would want me to tell you what the bill was. Yeah, I think they touched everything, but that's neither here nor there. It got fixed out here in Carlsbad, California. Hangar 1 Avionics is who did the work, and they just are a fantastic shop. You know, they've got a wonderful reputation. Don't take my word for it. You can search them online. I mean, they're notorious. Well, not notorious. They're infamous for getting the job done right. And the owner, I've got to really commend the owner too, because I know the owner personally, and he's one of those guys that is very meticulous, and he doesn't want a half-assed job. He wants it done right. And when you take it to a shop like Hangar 1, that's what they expect, and that's what the owner expects, and that's exactly what happened with this aircraft. All right, so I think to get us started, man, let's first talk about the pressurized 210. Man, I get a lot of people that ask me questions about these aircraft. What are they good at? What are they bad at? Man, I love them. I personally own one myself. I own a 1979 N model with the P210 conversion. But we'll talk about that. The N models were the first ones to come out. They did that in 1978, and then in later years they moved to the R model, which they only produced 40 of. By the time they got to the R model, they really got a lot of the bugs worked out of these aircraft, and they came a long way. And unfortunately, they only made 40 of them before they stopped production. I think 1986, if I'm not mistaken. This aircraft is a 1985 pressurized 210R model. Great airplanes. The difference between the N model and the R model, there's a few differences. Most notably, it's going to be this engine right here. The engine on the N model is a 310 horsepower Continental. This is a 325 horsepower Continental. I believe it's a TIO 520 Charlie Echo engine, if I'm not mistaken. 325 horsepower, max rated, which is really the engine probably should have had to begin with. I think sometimes some of the downsides to the N model is they were kind of notorious for being a little lethargic during the climb. They'd get really hot. Wasn't so much that they were lethargic, you just had to keep the airspeed up to keep them cool. And us flying down south, down in Georgia, down around the southeast or Texas or whatever, man, that can be a problem. So we had to keep that airspeed upwards around 130 knots, sometimes even 140 knots, and climb just to keep the engine cool. Well, that usually translates to about 500 feet per minute. But this R model, man, look at the size of these induction scoops right here. At that. The scoop down there. Look at the size of those cow flaps. It's huge. Long story short, man, cooling is not a problem on this engine. You're going to climb around 900 feet a minute. The engine's going to be cool as a cucumber. I'm a big fan of lean at peak operation. When we go flying this thing a little later, we're going to do some lean at peak operation. We're going to look at the advantages of that. Most notably is the fuel savings, right? People are like, well, an engine overhaul is cheap compared to fuel, you know, whatever. Anybody that doesn't like lean at peak operations convince me otherwise, because I'm a big fan. But the fuel savings is one, but most notably you've got the decreased cylinder head temperatures, which is the life of an engine. So when you got the decreased cylinder head temperature of this engine, somewhere down around 320, 340 degrees, anything less than 380 is good, but these engines are going to run down around 340 degrees cylinder head temperature. That is the life of your engine, and that's the advantage of running lean at peak. Now, you got to know how to do it. You can't just go willy-nilly and just start leaning this thing out, because you can get it way too hot if you're not careful. You know, if you hold out in that lean area too long, that's a recipe for disaster. So this airplane runs lean at peak. At least that's how I run it. You can run it rich peak if you prefer, but hey man, these things do a great job lean at peak. Let's keep going a little further. All right, let's do a quick walk around of an R model P210. So one of the most notable differences between the R model and the N model is going to be these tip tanks, right? Now in the N model, you can do aftermarket Flint tanks that take it from 88 gallons up to 122 gallons, I do believe it is. But that's an aftermarket thing. But Cessna decided, hey man, you know, the fuel range on the N model stock with 88 gallons is a little bit short of where it should be. So most people have converted the N models to the standard long-range tanks, and they put Flint tanks on them. But in the R models, it comes standard. So you've got 120 gallons of fuel in these things. And the plumbing, the way that Cessna did the plumbing, the fuel management is a piece of cake. Basically, you don't have to turn on any fuel pumps. You don't have to worry about transferring fuel to the main tanks like you do in the N model. It's just, you just fill it and go. Now, if you look in here, the N model has a left, right, and an off. And you have to balance your fuel left and right tanks. Now, for me personally, I don't ever really have a problem with that. In fact, I actually even like that, and I'll tell you why in just a second. What I do is I just look at my minute hand on my watch. If my minute hand's pointing to the left, I'm burning off the left tank. If it's pointing to the right, I'm burning off the right tank. I keep it simple, stupid. You know, it's called the KISS method. So I just keep it that way. And that way, if I'm ever cruising along and I'm like, man, did I forget to change those tanks, or did I swap that fuel? Man, let's see here. All right, looks like my minute hand's on the left, and if that tank were on the right, I know I didn't switch it. So I'll make that switch. This aircraft, you just leave it on both and let it go. Now that's good and bad, because what can happen, to me, it's an added safety benefit that in the event that you forget the 6P method, that's piss poor planning. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. If you fail the 6P method and you run a little short on gas, and let's say, God forbid, you run one of these tanks dry, on the N model, you can switch over to the other tank, and there's a pretty good chance it's going to have some gas in it. On this airplane, when you run it dry, it's dry. So, but as far as fuel management goes, man, it's a piece of cake. Just put it on both and let it go. And then maybe once you start exceeding the endurance of the aircraft and kind of start getting, into 5 hours, pushing the 6 hour mark, maybe then you can start going left and right. Just to kind of give you a little extra time, just in case, God forbid, something happens. That way you can land with some power instead of dead sticking it in somewhere, So, all right, that's the fuel system. That's one benefit of the P210R. Would you look at the size of this stabilizer? Well, that's something you don't hear every day, is it? Man, this stabilizer on the R model is 3 feet wider in total than the N model. That adds for a little more stability, a little more control and rotation, and in the flare, you got a lot of elevator back here, folks. And this elevator is balanced. Okay, so the controls on the R model versus the N model are very, very light. In the N model P210s, you know, I've got a P210 and it doesn't, I don't even really think about it unless I'm doing a demo video on the R model, and it's just something worthwhile to point out, is the flight controls on the R model are gonna be much lighter in rotation than, not in roll, but in pitch, are gonna be much, much lighter in the R model than the N model because it's balanced. These controls are balanced. In the N model, they've got a 5 or 6 pound counterweight on these control surfaces. So when it comes time to flare or even rotate on takeoff, man, you better, I hope you worked out or ate your Wheaties that morning, because it can be a handful, especially if you're not ready for it. I remember the first time I ever flew it and I tried to rotate, I thought, oh my God, I left my gust lock on or something, you know, some harebrained idea like that. But that didn't happen. You just got to pull back on it. You got to get that nose off the wheel, off the ground, and you got to rotate and go flying. So that's another, I guess, advantage of the R model. All right, we've talked about, we've got the big hefty engine, we've got the extended range fuel, we got the big tail feathers, but what about the performance? The performance on these airplanes, especially this airplane, because it is tight. It's very tight. And what I mean is the cabin's tight. Hangar 1 Avionics that did this annual inspection, I think I alluded to it earlier, boy, they really covered all the bases with this annual inspection, which is great. That was per the owner's request. But they leak tested this. These things are kind of notorious. They're old and they leak a lot. So, you know, to maintain a cabin differential of 3.25 PSI is the cabin differential on these airplanes. That's kind of low for a pressurized airplane. In fact, that's one of the lowest max diffs of any pressurized airplane that I've ever heard of. So to maintain 3.25 can be a struggle for these airplanes. I mean, you've got cables going through the bulkhead, you've got cables going to the landing gear, you've got air conditioning systems, doors. I mean, there's a lot going on that causes these leaks that make it very difficult for these airplanes to maintain that 3.25 max diff. So with that being said, this aircraft is one of the few and only airplanes that I know of, even my own, I don't think maintains 3.25 max diff. Maintains 3.25 all the way up to altitude, which means that you can go up. This aircraft is certified to 25,000 feet. 25,000 feet. You're going to be at a cabin altitude of around 12,000 feet. Okay, do that math. So 12,000. That's pretty good. You know, you're never going to go up to 25,000 feet, folks. I'm just going to give you a heads up. You may do it to top a storm or something like that, but you're not going to be hanging out up there at 25,000 feet. Besides that, I'd get a headache at 12,000 feet cabin pressure altitude. So I don't want to go up there. So instead, you're going to be down around the sweet spot of these P210s are down around 17 to 19,000 feet. Just plan on it. That's where you're going. Rough ride or not, that's where you're going. You can even go lower. Some people like to go down around 12 or 14. But me personally, I just flight plan either 17 to 19,000 feet, somewhere in there. I maintain it right around 10,000 feet of cabin altitude. I don't get a screaming headache. I'm good to go. Everybody's happy. All right, so I get to blabbing about cabin altitudes and pressurization, and I forget the important part. Let's talk about the performance. That's where we were going a while ago till we got distracted. So let's talk about the performance of these airplanes. This airplane, lean of peak. I'm a huge fan of lean of peak. If you don't know much about lean of peak, I'd be happy to teach you, or anybody I guess out there that knows about it. I encourage you to learn about it, get proficient at it. Don't just go into it kind of half-heartedly. thinking you understand it. You got to understand it for it to work right, for it to be beneficial to you and your engine. Okay, so, but lean a peak. We're gonna run this one lean a peak today. We're gonna get it down. I speculate somewhere between 16 and 17 gallons per hour. That's, yeah, 16 to 17 gallons per hour. We're gonna cruise along at that fuel flow at around 195 to 200 knots. True. So we'll see how that holds up. Check my math later, but that's what it should even out at. And we're gonna go upwards, probably about 17. Probably gonna leave out of here VFR, go to 17.5. So anyway, so yeah, that's, you know, with 120 gallons of fuel, you take off at 35 to 36 gallons per hour up to altitude. And then you lean it out to 16 to 17 gallons per hour. You can do the math. You've got right at 6 hours of endurance. So I don't know about you, man, but I don't want to ride longer than 6 hours in an airplane. I don't want to ride longer than any airplane for that long. I want to be able to get up, walk around, order pizza, whatever I got to do. So anyway, that's it. 6 hours. Boy, this is gonna be a joy to fly. You know, it's something like flying the old steam gauges, man. You know, which I like steam gauges. I'm not knocking the steam gauge, folks. If you guys have a steam gauge airplane, it's a great airplane. I think it's the way everybody should learn. But you want to step into modern aviation, this is the way to do it right here. These airplanes, the airplane's loaded with the G600. We got the dual 750. Touchscreens, and what is that thing? It's the MVP 50. That's right, this is the MVP. I think that's Electronics International MVP 50. Thing's even got a checklist on it, man. What a cool piece of avionics that is. Of course, we don't go anywhere without our iPads, you know, so you got your iPad there. We got more GPSs we know what to do with. There's no way we can get lost, right? Well, that's what they all say. But anyway, man, this thing got the Garmin autopilot down there. Golly, no vacuum system. Golly, man, this is a nice airplane, folks. Not all the P210s are this way, you know, but hey, this one is, so we'll take it. All right, well, we're cranked up, man. Like I was saying, it kind of sucks that I can't record my audio. You know, because I've got this plug. See that plug right there? That's the, anyway, that's the Bose plug, and it won't adapt to my audio recorder, but we'll overlay some audio here later. But I'll try to get some footage of the takeoff and climb and all that good stuff.
Ocean ground clear to Foxtrot Charlie Mike Airport as maintain 1-2000. Expect level 190, 1 minutes after. Departure frequency 124.55. Clock 3714.
Alright, runway is clear. Runway is clear.
Heading runway 27, wind 28020, gust 30, clear for takeoff. Clear for takeoff.
Alright, clear for takeoff, runway 27, runway heading 23 kilowatt. Technique, I kind of like to line up on the runway, kind of let things stabilize, and then we'll release the brakes. Let that turbo spool up a little bit. These engines, sometimes when you add the power to them, can kind of stumble if you add the power too fast because they don't have an accelerator pump. Alright, so here we go. cruise set up. We're about 136 knots. We're climbing at 800 feet a minute. Manifold pressure looks great. RPMs look great. Fuel flow is 37.7. That's right on the money, man. That's what we're looking for. Everything is full forward. We're going to be climbing full rich, full throttle, and max RPM all the way up. Keep that fuel flowing to the engine. That's what we're looking for. All right, looking real happy. 12,000 out of 12,000 for 19, going all the way up. Pressurization is looking good. Pressurization's on. It's already coming up. That's looking good. Here we go. We got a little downtime. We still got 2 hours and 15 minutes to destination. So let's take a look at this panel. See what all we've got. Got all our warning cabin indications right here. You got cabin out, de-ice pressure. If the alternator 1 or 2 goes offline, that light will come on. You got a low voltage light in the door pump. When the door pump cycles, that light will come on. It stays on for more than a minute. You're supposed to turn the door seals off. There's your prop anti-ice. You can see that when I turn the prop anti-ice, that comes up. There's my pressurization. All that looks good. That's good. When I pressurize the boots, that'll come up into the green. That's what you want to see. Moving along. Garmin 600. What an incredible piece of equipment. See, my ground speed is 204, 145 knots indicated with 195 knots true airspeed. That's right what we planned. Winds are 315 out of 36. I'm going to say direct crosswind, slightly quartering. I'd rather have a slightly quartering than slightly headwind. It makes all the difference in the world. Temperature is outside set minus 20. 19,000 feet. Headed up to Flying Cloud. So standby attitude indicator. I keep this set up like this. I keep monitoring my weather in Flying Cloud. Make sure nothing changes. It's right in front of me. My primary navcom is here. Also keep an eye on my weather here. That's my next rad. There's also XM radar or XM weather on board. And my engine gauge, man, this thing is awesome. What an incredible piece of equipment this is. Monitor everything, everything's in the green. Let's see, manifold, RPM, fuel flow, fuel pressure, oil temperature. All this is in the green. I go to my menu. Menu gives you all kinds of stuff. I added fuel. You can even run checklists. If you want to run checklists, what a cool piece of equipment this is. All right. There's your engine and system functions right there. There's all your fuel flow. A lot of times people leave it on this screen right here. It's kind of easier to read. So, cool airplane, man. Cruising along on top. All right, folks, we made it all the way to Flying Cloud from San Diego. And I gotta be honest with you, rarely do I ever have no squawks on an airplane, but today may be the day. Airplane's running beautifully, very tight. Pressurization absolutely amazes me. I've never seen a P210 quite that tight, but it did a great job. So the airport here in Flying Cloud, man, they were super awesome. They're letting me do a photo shoot out here on the runway. Not very often you get to see that, but we're sitting on the numbers of 36. That's pretty cool. Guys, check out www.flymaxaircraft.com. You'll see more about this airplane. We also provide instruction. Insurance has got such these days that it kind of gets difficult to get insured in these things. We can take care of that as well for you. So we're the one-stop shop. We'll take care of you. We'll take care of our customers. We love you and we need you. Talk to you soon.